Yo, if this rematch is anything like the original, this might be a hellacious fight. We've got Jai Opetaia, 24 wins and 0 losses, taking on Mairis Briedis, 28 wins and 2 losses. This is the rematch. Jai Opetaia won the first fight via unanimous decision. Great fight. We're going to talk about that. And this rematch is for the vacant IBF Cruiserweight title. So Jai Opetaia was the Cruiserweight champion after beating Briedis. So he took Briedis' IBF title. He retained it in a TKO, 4th round TKO over Jordan Thompson. And then he was stripped, or he vacated the IBF Cruiserweight title in opting to feature on a Saudi Arabian card fighting Ellis Zorro, which resulted in a 1st round knockout. But the big exposure on the Saudi Arabia card, not to mention the money, made it worthwhile for Jai Opetaia to vacate that IBF Cruiserweight title, the one, again, that he won against Mairis Briedis. So nobody has won that IBF Cruiserweight title since, so they are just putting that same belt up for grabs in this rematch between Opetaia and Briedis. Now, Opetaia I see as kind of being one of boxing's shiny new objects. Like, we usually see these like fighters emerge onto the scene to where they just look like they are outstanding, spectacular performances, usually undefeated, and the public just gets super hyped. They start looking at their skill set, start looking at how good they are in terms of how they would do against some of the best fighters in the current day and in the past. You know, somebody who is just taking the division by storm. Bam Rodriguez is another. You know, when you've got a new, fresh name in the game and they are achieving greatness at a relatively young age, usually you get this kind of hype bubble around them. And I feel like Jai Opetaia currently has that glow. But it was Mairis Briedis who is, as it stands, you know, I would say a potential future Hall of Famer. I have to think a little bit more deeply about this, but Mairis Briedis is actually a 3-time champion. Like, I know that most people kind of associate him with being in that massive fight, well, massive divisionally. It wasn't a super high profile fight, especially in the United States. You know, the Cruiserweight division is usually one of the most slept on divisions. You normally get a lot of international, less famous fighters, often very good, but less famous fighters. So a lot of fans in the US aren't really up on the Cruiserweight division. But one of the most important fights that's taken place in recent years in that division was Alexander Usyk versus Mairis Briedis. I believe that was a semifinal in the Cruiserweight version of the World Boxing Super Series. I think it was Usyk versus Murat Gassiev in the finals. But this was a much anticipated showdown between Usyk and Briedis, and it ended up being a very good fight. Alexander Usyk finished very strong. He won a majority decision over Mairis Briedis, and I feel like that is still what most people first associate Mairis Briedis with. But by the time he fought Usyk, he had beaten Marco Huck to earn the WBC Cruiserweight title. That was a vacant title fight, and he defended it successfully against former heavyweight Mike Perez. Remember Mikey Perez? Well, those were Briedis's 2 most recent fights before that showdown against Usyk. So he loses his WBC title in that fight. He wins his next few fights. He beats Krzysztof Glowacki via 3rd round TKO. Think about it, like, Briedis hits really hard. He's got a beautiful right hand. So he beats Glowacki, he beats Unil Dorticos, and in that fight against Glowacki, he won the WBO Cruiserweight title, vacated that, then he fights Dorticos, another pretty damn good fighter. He beats him via majority decision, and those were the semifinals, the one against Glowacki, and then in the finals against Dorticos of another World Boxer Super Series. So Mairis Briedis has taken place in 2 of those, one pretty much soon after the other. So after, you know, he lost to Usyk, then a couple years later, he competes at another WBSS and he wins that whole thing. And in doing so, he captured 1 title, vacated it, then captured another title. That title was the IBF belt that he lost 2 fights later against Jai Opetaia. So in Briedis' whole career, his only 2 losses are to Alexander Usyk and to Jai Opetaia. So Briedis, you could argue, aside from Usyk, might be the next best cruiserweight of that era. So here we've got Opetaia versus Briedis 2, and you can't really get too deep into 2 without talking about part 1. And part 1, here's one interesting thing about that. When they announced the fight, Briedis in another title defense against Jai Opetaia. Keep in mind, Briedis at this point only has one loss in his whole career. It's to Usyk. So he's beating all of the other, top tier, near top tier cruiserweights in the division, right? Even though he never fought like Lawrence Okoli. But anyway, the betting odds, when they first announced the fight, they opened with Briedis a 5-1 favorite. By the time they got in the ring, he was a -170, so he was just shy of being a 2-1 favorite. So again, he went from 5-1 favorite to a 1.7-1 favorite. I don't know what the reason for that narrowing of the betting odds was, but you could tell within the first couple rounds of Briedis versus Opetaia 1 that Opetaia was up for this challenge. Like, you look at the guy's skill set, it really jumps off the page. Like, you know how I was saying Mairis Briedis has an A-level right hand, straight right? Well, Jai Opetaia, he's got an arsenal of nice punches. First of all, he's a southpaw, so he's got a nice straight left, but he's got a really nice check right hook, lead hand, check right hook. He could throw a beautiful uppercut, which actually changed the course of the fight between these two. It was a lead hand, right hand uppercut as Mairis Briedis was coming in. In the fourth round, Mairis Briedis was coming in to throw a right hand, and Opetaia timed him perfectly with a lead right uppercut. Caught Briedis super flush, messed up his nose, and Briedis was basically hurt for like the next 2 to 3 rounds. So Opetaia, I see as being much more of a two-fisted fighter than Mairis Briedis. Mairis Briedis got a beautiful right hand, but when he throws his left hand, it's usually after throwing the big right hand. So yes, he'll launch the right and then follow it up with the left, but he doesn't lead too much with the left. I mean, he'll throw the jab, but he won't throw a lot of lead left hooks, whereas Opetaia will lead with a right hook or with a straight left. And his timing and the way that he bounces on his feet, very athletic, very agile, very quick fighter. He looked like he had the hand speed advantage early against Briedis. So the way that I scored this initially was first round, swing round. Really could have gone either way. You could edge it towards Opetaia, but I wouldn't be mad either way. Opetaia, to me, clearly won the second round, competitive round, but Opetaia did more, was starting to let his left hand go and even catching Briedis with a couple lead right hooks. Third round, another swing round, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. I would argue you could give the fourth through the eighth all to Jai Opetaia. Again, he hurt Briedis badly in the fourth round, bloodied him up badly. Fifth round, sixth round was Briedis still fighting very spiritedly, and he was having his moments, but he was still, you could tell he was still recovering and trying to get his bearings. It was a nasty fight by the end of the sixth round, to where by the seventh and eighth, the fight goes from a very tactical fight, and it was always tactical, but it became a dogfight in the middle into the late rounds. So I had, again, Opetaia also winning the seventh and eighth. So let's say you split those first and third, the swing rounds. By this point, if you're scoring it like I scored it, and a lot of you might disagree with this, but I would have had Opetaia up 7-1 after 8 rounds. Now, the seventh and eighth were a little closer, so you could actually make those swing rounds as well. So this could have also been 6-2. This could have even been 5-3. But then I gave 9 through 12 to Mairis Briedis, with the 9th round being a close round, and he hurt Opetaia in one of those 7th or 8th swing rounds, and he hurt Opetaia pretty badly with the uppercut of his own in the 10th round. And the 9th round was close as well. Like, this wasn't like clearly a Mairis Briedis round. I gave it to him, but he blasted Opetaia with nice right hands in the 9th round, rocked Opetaia a couple of times. So this fight started to get really ugly and really nasty. Both guys were super bloody by the 11th and then into the 12th round, because in the 11th round, Mairis Briedis basically just shattered, reportedly in multiple places, shattered Opetaia's jaw, to where in the 12th round, Opetaia's fighting with his mouth wide open, blood just coming from, the mouth pretty profusely. Like, he looked like a zombie by that time. So the 12th round is, both guys are bloody, because Mairis Briedis sustained a cut in the first round, and then he sustained, again, the bloody nose in the 4th round. So this was a very grueling fight. And yes, Opetaia won a unanimous decision, but it was a very close fight, and Briedis finished strong. Now, Briedis, ever since that fight, especially with Usyk, okay, so 2018 is when Briedis fought Usyk early, like January of 2018. He fought 2 more times in 2018, but after that point, he fought once in 2019, once in the COVID 2020, fought once, that was the Dorticos fight, late in 2020. He fought once in 2021 against Artur Mann, resulted in a 3rd round TKO, and 20 out of Briedis' 28 wins have come via knockout, whereas 19 out of Opetaia's 24 wins have come via knockout. So both of these guys knocked most of their opponents out, but Briedis, yeah, fought once in 2019, once in 2020, once in 2021, and then once in 2022, in July of 2022 against Opetaia. Mairis Briedis has been out of the ring for almost 2 years now, and Briedis is 39 years old. So look, this might be Mairis Briedis' last stand, right? To become a 4-time Cruiserweight champion. And again, Opetaia, his reputation has been just surging over the past couple of years. I wonder, and look, he should know what he's up against right now at Mairis Briedis. So I don't picture or imagine that Opetaia could be underestimating him in this rematch, right? I mean, he suffered the broken jaw the first time against Briedis. He was doing beautifully, wonderfully in the first half of the fight, had much more difficulty in the second half of the fight, where it became a dogfight, a little bit more of a rough and tumble brawl where they were hitting each other. Look, by the end of this fight, with Opetaia's broken jaw and everything, he was holding on to Mairis Briedis by the end of the 12th. Whereas in the 4th through 6th round, you were wondering if Mairis Briedis was gonna make it out of this fight, like if he was gonna go the distance, or if Opetaia was about to stop Mairis Briedis. It got really bad for him. But when I'm sizing this fight up, I'm assuming that Opetaia is gonna be ready for game time. Like, he is not taking this lightly, and that he's gonna respect Mairis Briedis having the heart of the champion, having the experience, and having the desire to get this get back, right? Because Briedis never got a rematch with Usyk. That was that. Usyk, a couple fights later, went up to heavyweight. So Briedis, I'm imagining, is gonna pour his all into this fight. And I think Opetaia knows that. Opetaia, again, a much younger fighter. We've got a 28-year-old against a 39-year-old. By the way, in that Opetaia or Briedis versus Opetaia fight, listen to the commentary, super pro Aussie. Like, they were hardly giving Briedis credit for anything in the first 7 or 8 rounds. And even when he would hit Opetaia with something big, they would say, but it didn't affect Opetaia. Super homer commentary in that one. Like, I would suspect if you watch that fight with the commentary versus without the commentary, you might have 2 different scores, right? And I mean, it's like that sometimes. But in this rematch, again, Briedis with the inactivity, look, maybe the 2 years out of the ring does him some good in terms of preservation. Like, you don't want to be too busy when you're in your late 30s. You need more recovery time, naturally. But Opetaia, just with his skill set, with the way that he moves around the ring, the way that he's setting up big punches, the way that he, as I see it, is much more of a two-fisted fighter than Mairis Briedis is. I see him kind of pulling away on the scorecards again. But I do also see Briedis looking to get that right hand going and looking to splash against Opetaia. I wonder what they're going to do on the Opetaia side defensively to try to guard against that right hand. Because again, it started to eat Opetaia up a bit. Yes, in the early rounds, some, but more so again in the second half of the fight. I wonder what adjustment they're going to make there. But Opetaia, with the way that he bounces and with his suddenness, sometimes he'll just shoot that straight left as a lead, like not setting it up with a jab. Sometimes he will set it up with the jab. Sometimes he'll just go right into throwing the left hand. And again, he's got a nice check right hook or a right uppercut when Briedis starts to come into the pocket, which I'm sure Briedis is going to be mindful of. I just don't know how Briedis, aside from wanting to start off faster, which I don't know, at 39, can you just put your foot on the gas early and sustain that pace throughout the fight? Again, it was Briedis who looked like he was surging late in the fight, whereas Opetaia was not only tiring, but was hurt towards the end of the fight. So maybe Briedis wants to start sooner, but strategically, I don't see Briedis with his style, unless he's going to start throwing more lead left hands and make that more of an issue. If Briedis is still very right hand dominant, I don't see how he's going to continue to launch the right hand without getting caught by something big. I could see Briedis getting wobbled and maybe even dropped in this one. You know, for all the beating that he took in that first fight, neither one of these guys hit the canvas. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight does involve a knockdown. But as much as I want to say Opetaia is going to be even better for this fight, which you really don't know because Opetaia seems super hungry in that fight. I mean, that was probably Opetaia's best performance. I mean, he hasn't fought in anybody the caliber of Briedis since. He's had a tune-up fight against Ellis Zorro and a much lesser fighter who was an exciting DAZN matchroom fighter in Jordan Thompson. But Opetaia was just clear. I mean, Jordan Thompson was outmatched. This is going to obviously be the toughest fight for Opetaia since the first time they fought. Is Opetaia as hungry as he was in that first one? And did Mairis Briedis somewhat underestimate Opetaia in their first fight? So whereas in the first fight, I think that it was Opetaia that was super motivated because again, he wanted to become champion. I think that in this rematch, it's going to be Mairis Briedis that is super motivated. But I don't think Opetaia is taking his eye off the ball here. You know, I was going to go with Opetaia, maybe even via stoppage, but I think that Opetaia is going to do enough to win majority of the rounds. Again, two-fisted fighter, very good technically, a lot of speed, pretty decent defensively, and his just offensive arsenal is just so much of a handful. Briedis has more than a couple of things to worry about here. Whereas Opetaia, I still think it's more so look out for that tricky right hand. Like Briedis, yes, he is right hand dominant, but he's got different types of right hands. Look at the one that he caught Opetaia with big time in the 9th round. That wasn't his typical right hand. First of all, there was a delay on it. So he almost kind of like stood and froze and then kind of shot it at a weird but still somewhat straight angle. And then he caught him flush with it. And he could throw an overhand and he could just kind of throw like an upright. So he could throw a chopping right. And he could throw a wider right. He's got different right hands that he deploys, but it's still mostly right hand dominant. I think Opetaia is going to win this fight. And I think it's going to be it's not going to seem like a nearly even fight. Because again, a lot of people, you know, some people thought that this fight, because of the way that Mairis Briedis came back, that it could have been ruled a draw. This wasn't like an easy fight to call. There were a few swing rounds. I don't think that it's going to be as difficult to call this rematch. I think Opetaia is going to win it more convincingly, but I think that Mairis Briedis is still going to show enough craft, enough heart, enough power, you know, because Opetaia is going to get popped by that right hand. So Opetaia still has to respect him, still has to navigate the waters and be careful. I think Briedis is going to show enough and demonstrate enough throughout this fight to go the distance. But I think that he's going to lose another unanimous decision, but this one is going to be a bit wider on the scorecards. And I think that it probably will, or at least really might, involve a knockdown. And I think that that knockdown would most likely take place with Opetaia dropping Briedis. But I'm going to go with Jai Opetaia via wider unanimous decision in this rematch over Mairis Briedis to recapture the IBF Cruiserweight title. Let me know your thoughts. And Opetaia, by the way, is still the ring champion. So yeah, let me know what you think about Opetaia versus Briedis 2. We've got the Aussie versus the Latvian legend, or the Latvian Punisher, I think his nickname actually is. Let me know what you think about this rematch. Who do you have winning it and how? And let's say Opetaia, the younger fighter with the glowing name right now, let's say he beats Briedis in this rematch. Where do you want to see him go from here? Do you want to see him fight another top cruiserweight, or do you want to see him test things at heavyweight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.